Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Thursday, June the 11th, 2015. Just got back in from Texas late last night after a wonderful experience at the Houston Galveston Hurricane Workshop, and then up to the Sweetwater, Colorado City area to launch our high-altitude hurricane research balloon project. We actually did 2 launches on Monday, and that was very successful. We learned a lot, and we are now ready to deploy that payload in the eye of a hurricane or the center, if it's calm enough, of a well-organized tropical storm at landfall. More on that on a future blog post at HurricaneTrack.com. It was a great week. I really appreciate all the help from everybody involved. You know who you are. It was fantastic. So now, back in the office, and let's check out what's going on in the tropics. First, a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies. Clearly, the El Nino sticks out here in the tropical Pacific, much warmer than the water should be here right now. In the Atlantic Basin, only the subtropics is warmer than it should be. Most of the deep tropics here quite a bit on the cool side compared to where it should be, and that means we're probably going to have less overall numbers. We've been over all this before. Nothing has really changed. This is the very latest subsurface anomalies map focused on June 7th, and you can see this very warm pool of water persists across the eastern, probably 3/5 of the Pacific Ocean. We still have this large area of colder than average anomalies, but it does not seem to be growing, so it looks as if this El Nino is going to be with us for some time and go right through the hurricane season. And that means very interesting things will happen globally. We've talked about that a little bit before. It definitely means a very busy Pacific hurricane season and Western Pacific typhoon season, with the Atlantic Basin having less than normal overall activity. Now, as I've said, and as you should know, that doesn't mean that 1 or 2 won't sneak through and cause some kind of problems for someone. Since nobody knows where or when that may happen, we just have to be prepared, right? So the actual temperatures, and this is where this comes into play, if we get a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, these water temperatures right here are 30 and 31 degrees Celsius right up against the coastline from extreme western Mississippi all around the coast of Louisiana through most of the coastal areas of Texas. Offshore of there, in this green color, we're talking about 29 degrees Celsius water temperatures at the surface. And that's really, really warm, obviously. And so it's just a matter of, hey, will something come in here and tap into that? We'll just have to wait and see. But water temperature is very warm, as they are off the Atlantic coast as well. Pamlico Sound here warming up to the low 80s. We have low 80s here well north of 34 degrees latitude here. I mean, even 35, splitting it down the middle between 34 and 36. And then quite warm off the coast of Georgia and Florida. The water temperatures are not going to be an issue. Will something form and tap into those warm waters is the big question. Most El Nino years do have a hurricane landfall in the United States. And in fact, some of those landfalls, more often than not, you get a major hurricane. 1992 is an example with Andrew, 1983 with Alicia, and there are others. So we have to be on the lookout. We may not have a busy season overall, but it could be busy with that one that sneaks through into your neighborhood. So nothing over the next 40 hours sneaking into anybody's neighborhood in the Atlantic Basin. Meanwhile, in the tropical Pacific, we do have Tropical Storm Carlos here off the coast of Mexico, and a quick look at the 5-day forecast from the National Hurricane Center. A little bit of good news. And I'm going to show you why this is the way it is. The track towards Mexico and then bending off to the northwest with time. So folks from Manzanillo down to Acapulco, not too much to be concerned with. This is a satellite picture. A very well-defined hurricane, more than likely over this warm water in its path. Going to become a very strong hurricane. It'll send some swells for sure towards the coast. So that could be some great surfing conditions in Cabo San Lucas. And it'll make for interesting port shenanigans, if you will, for Manzanillo. Any boating interest, and certainly the port in Acapulco. People are going to want to be mindful of that, and obviously the cruise ship authorities keep a watchful eye on those hazards of high seas and swells generated by offshore tropical cyclones. So why isn't this going to be a threat to make landfall in southwest Mexico? Here's the tropical storm and the 500 millibar level of the GFS global model. And if we go through time, this is roughly right now. And this is what happens over the next several days. And you notice you do have this large foot-shaped ridging in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and that extends out just enough. It's like a very large bubble of denser, warmer air than is the tropical cyclone. And so like we see in the Atlantic, where these go around the ridge and then try to find the weakness and get out, the same holds true in the Pacific, where in this case it's not able to come up into the ridge, which you can clearly see the outline of that ridge just far enough west to hold this offshore. And in fact, if we go through the frames over time, you see there's just enough ridging, and I'm just going to let it play, that it keeps the system, excuse me, and this flash program here just not working as well as I'd like it to, but you get the idea. You have this nice upper level and mid-level ridging here, and that's going to keep Carlos from steering into Mexico. Not going to happen, it looks like, this time. So good news there for people with interests and who live in southwest Mexico. Yes, it's out there, keep an eye on it, but it does not look to be much of a threat other than the increase in surf and swells and maybe some clouds thrown in from the outflow, and that's about it. So there you go. You're up to date on the tropics. The Atlantic, again, nice and quiet as we head towards this first full big weekend in June. That's good news. So that's it. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Thank you so much for tuning in as always, and I'll be back tomorrow with another update.